Ben Aude from the BA Coaches Show speaks now. Good Monday morning.
How are you guys doing today?
You know what? Actually, considering everything, not bad.
All right. I like to hear that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, hey,
What's our alternative?
The world didn't end. We move forward. We got to find a solution for what happened on Saturday.
Yeah, I hear you on that. I like your guys' mindset today.
So, is there a solution?
I sure hope so. Right?
Come on, Coach.
Well, let's do this. Let's approach it this way, and then this will lead to some probably pointed questions. How much of Saturday was an Indiana team that is really good, that executed at a high level and scouted Nebraska better than Nebraska scouted themselves, versus Nebraska played extremely poor?
I think it's a combination of both. I think that is probably by far the best game Indiana has played, and I'd say by far the worst game Nebraska has played. I don't want to downplay Indiana and not give them the credit that they deserve, because they did go out and play extremely well. I think they scouted us extremely well, and they were beating us up all game long. I want to give them credit for that. They even brought in a lot of their backup guys, and we're still beating the crap out of us, right? So I want to give them credit, and I don't want to take anything away from that. At the same time, I can't act like that was a good game by Nebraska. That was terrible all the way around, and I love you guys, but I've been dreading the conversation just because I don't really have a ton of words, but we're going to do our best and try and, put into words how bad this was. I don't know. I'm kind of at a loss. I went back and rewatched the game painfully yesterday, and I still am just kind of at a loss, if that makes sense. I don't know. I did not like a lot of what I saw.
You brought up the Indiana scouting Nebraska. One of my biggest gripes was the lack of preparation, at least of what appeared to be a team that was unprepared, which was probably the most disappointing thing out of this entire result. What areas do you think it looked, we know it probably wasn't the case, but it looked like Nebraska was so inept to the point that it looked like where you asked the question, where was the preparation? Which area? Because I know there's a lot to choose from. Which area maybe was the most glaring for you?
The lack of run game after a bye week was extremely disappointing to me. I know Indiana's rush defense has kind of been underrated just from what a lot of the things I'd kind of seen, just because I like to listen to other things. And a lot of people were giving them some credit, but after a bye week, not being able to improve the run game was extremely disappointing to me. And then obviously we just abandoned the run game pretty early and throw the ball 40-something times. I don't think in 2024, that's not going to be Nebraska's recipe to success. So that was my biggest frustration, I think, when I went and rewatched that game again, was our lack of ability to run the ball, and then how quickly we got off our ability to run the ball. I do understand, you trying to throw yourself back into that game, but that's not our recipe for success. And I just wish we would have stuck with that run game a little bit longer.
Why do you think there's a disconnect on what Rule preaches and wants, and then what actually happens on Saturday when it comes to the run game?
I don't quite know. And it's been, I don't know. So I have a lot of problems and gripe with our offensive staff right now, if I'm being honest with you. And game day play calling is definitely up there, but I'd say it might not be my biggest gripe, if that makes sense. Just because, I don't know. To answer your question, I know this doesn't answer, but I don't know why there's such a big disconnect. I don't know if it's a disconnect between Satterfield and Rule. I don't know. I don't know if it's just what he's saying publicly isn't what we're actually wanting to see in the games. I don't know, because you're right. Everything that Matt Rule preaches and says that we want to do with the run game is not happening. I'd really like to know, just bluntly here, what did that run game study that he said we did, what did that show us, and how did we incorporate that into what happened Saturday? To me, it looked bad. I know he said, we had a big, extensive run game study, and he studied it and how to improve it. I want to know what that was. I know I will never know the answer to that, but if I could, I would really like to know what that study consisted of and how we tried to incorporate that, because it did not work.
All right, so what was your top gripe then?
Okay. To me, it goes a
Oh,
lot
that's not
deeper.
good when somebody goes, okay.
Yeah.
It's like you're supposed to prepare yourself.
Right.
Sit down for this
I've
discussion.
been chewing on this for a while.
Yeah, to me, it's a lot deeper than play calling because, yes, I'm not going to come on here and say the play calling was good. But here's my hypothetical question I have to you guys, okay? What plays should you be calling when you have an offensive line that isn't getting a vertical push, not holding in pass pro long enough, your receivers aren't getting any separation, and they're an embarrassment blocking on the perimeter, right? Like, to me, the whole entire every position group has gotten it's regressed from game to game since about Colorado or Northern. Like for the last month, I think every position group on offense has regressed when every other defense in the country is getting better. And that ultimately lands on the offensive staff, the offensive coordinator, and yes, that ends up going to Matt Rule, right? So that's my biggest gripe is, yes, we need to figure out the play calling. But to me, I don't know what plays you should be calling when you have no operation on your team that's working well, if that makes sense.
The question was posed by Gary. I've seen a lot of people discussing this in our stream right now on Zone TV, and that is, why can't receivers get separation? What is the issue going on with wide receivers and basically not being able to get open? And people are bringing up, hey, they were open at their previous stops, Wake Forest and Wyoming, and I guess Texas, very limited. But why is that not happening? Are you seeing anything that would make sense of why this is happening? Why the wide receivers for Nebraska are not finding that separation?
They're just having a hard time seemingly finding the holes in the zone defense is what I've been seeing. And I don't know. It just feels like the explosivity that we saw earlier in the season isn't quite there. I feel like things just aren't quite in sync. I don't think it's a huge thing because what I thought going in when I was rewatching, I thought it was going to be having a hard time getting off a lot of the press, but I don't think that's, getting jammed at the line. I don't think that's the issue. I don't know. I think part of it is our offensive plays our play calls sometimes are a little bit hit or miss. Is sometimes we basically will just send a guy deep, and if that guy's not open, we're hitting the check down, and that's part of it. Is every defense we're going to face for the most part is going to have a deep defender, and it's just not been a good operation all around. I don't know if it's receiver coaching. I mean, I don't want to throw the question out, but like, is it having a 24, 25-year-old receiver coach? I don't know. And it's just the last month we have seen a regression in the receivers. To me, are one of the biggest ones, but I think every single position group on offense has regressed in the last month. And even if they aren't necessarily regressing, I guess they're staying the same when every other team in the country is getting dramatically better in the month of October. That's been an issue to me.
So tying this in, let's bring Dylan into the conversation, Ben, because 4.25 yards was the amount of depth on throws from Saturday's game. There was a lot of check down. There were a lot of dump offs. There were 28 completions, but there were 44 attempts. They didn't really want to challenge the secondary vertically. They wanted to get the ball to the sideline. Was that more in game plan, you think, against Indiana? Or is this something where, man, the last couple of weeks, the passing game, whether it be the wide receivers, the tight end, the quarterback, offensive line, not being able to run the ball consistently is just rearing its ugly head? So they're choosing the best option to give Dylan success?
I think, yes, I think we're trying to give Dylan success here. It's just hard when we're not getting that separation down the field. It's just not forcing the ball, because we see what's happening when he is forcing the ball downfield. We're seeing interceptions, right? And I think it's a combination of, I think we didn't want to test them vertically, like you said, Indiana vertically. And then I don't know. I just see how many times are we dumping the ball off on, second and, I don't know, 10 or 8 or whatever it is, and only getting a yard or two instead of trying to push the ball. And that a lot of that is because when they don't have a run game, Indiana is able to just sit back in that zone coverage and play a little bit softer. And then they're able to come up and make tackles. And I do legitimately think a lot of this comes from not having a strong run game, because to me, the best way to showcase the young quarterback's talent isn't throwing the ball 40-something times a game.
Yeah.
It's having a good run game. So when we are throwing the ball 20 to 25 times a game, we're having more separation. We're holding those linebackers up just a little bit more. We're holding those safeties up a little bit more. To me, that's how you showcase a very, very, very talented young quarterback, not having them throw the ball 40-something times a game. Because also, when you're on the defensive line, when you know that it's pass pro, you know that they're passing all the time. It's 2nd and 9 and they're passing. It's so much easier to beat your one-on-one in offensive line blocking. It's hard to be an offensive lineman and pass block 40-something times a game. So, yes, I'm going to rag on the offensive line a little bit just for not having a great game. But, like, when you're being asked to pass protect 40-something times a game, that's not a recipe for success either.
Unfortunately, we have to have the same questions, or at least question about the defense. I was hoping going into Saturday that it's a unit that we've trusted, that wouldn't be part of the issue as well. Obviously, that was the case. What can you chalk up to maybe, boy, they just got out schemed, they can correct it and be okay, as opposed to this is just what they are and you're going to have to take the lumps as they come?
I think a lot of what happened is they got hit in the mouth early and they never really quite responded. And I don't know this for sure, but I feel like part of that, I mean, I'm not going to blame the offense, but like, I think part of that is offense is getting absolutely nothing. And now you're back on the field again after just giving up 3 straight touchdowns, right? And you just keep coming out there. And I don't want to look into it too much, but I was pretty bothered by Jamari Butler's comments after the game of, I mean, I know you guys heard it of, when things aren't going your way, sometimes you hold, it's like, oh man, I don't love hearing that. I really don't love hearing that, especially after hearing Rule after the game kind of say, oh, I didn't think the guys quit. And then you hear what Butler said. That concerned me more after the game. I try not to think too much in the post-game things because 99% of the time I have the feeling of, hey, what do you want them to say after a game like that? Like, I felt like some of the things that Matt Rule said, I know people are making a big deal, but to me, it's a little bit nitpicky because it's like, all right, what do you want them to say after getting blown out by 49 points, right? But I will say, I am very concerned after hearing what Butler had said, and I don't know, I guess maybe that was part of it too, is once things didn't start going their way, it was going bad, and next thing you know, it's 28-7 or whatever. I think maybe they just, had a little bit of quit in them, and that is not something that I am cool with. That is something that I have a big worry about when it comes to this defense. I was able to chalk it up to, hey, you got hit in the mouth early, and then nothing. It was just a bad operation all the way around. But I did not like hearing that. It sounds like there was a little bit of give up in there.
Ben Aude from the BA Coaches Show joining us. I want you to fill in the blank here, sticking with defense. If Nebraska doesn't get pressure on the quarterback, blank happens.
Bad stuff happens. To me, one of the keys to the game, I can't remember if I said it when I was on here last week with you guys or whatever. One of my keys to the game was rattling Indiana early and not letting them get a big lead or not letting them get a lead. It was getting pressure to the quarterback, upsetting Rourke, getting after him quite a bit. And that did not happen. And against good teams hey, we're about to see a really good Ohio State offense. If we want to have any semblance of looking good in that game defensively, we're going to have to get after the quarterback. That's just, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I feel like for a lot of these teams, that's going to be how we're going to have to do it. And again, I'll try and give Indiana some credit. They came out, they schemed us well. They were actually pushing us around quite a bit up front, which I'll be real, I did not see coming. I did not see us getting pushed around the way we did. When they got that first rushing touchdown, I was like, oh, it's bound to happen at some point. No big deal. And then next thing you know, it was the second and the third. And I was like, okay, maybe this is a problem. So, yeah, I just think we're going to have to get after the quarterback in the Big Ten if we're going to want to have success with this defense.
I want to ask you this about just the overall philosophy of the roster right now in year 2 and the importance of, at the very least, getting to a bowl game, but winning games. Is there too much emphasis on the development and not enough on young players that can help you win now needing to be on the field more? Are they caught a little bit too much into the what we want the program to be as opposed to what we need it to be for this year, knowing that maybe there are some guys that are redshirting that can help you win right now?
I think that's a very good question. I'm not quite sure, and I'd love to say give it another week just because this is but I fear of what's coming at Ohio State next week. So I'd really like to try and answer that question after maybe UCLA or USC, just because I don't know. Up until this point, I would have said no. Up until like a week ago, I would not have thought that was the case. But after a game like that, you certainly have to ask that question, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sorry I don't have a great answer for you, but I'd like to see a little bit more evidence. Just if we keep melting down like this, I would say 100%. But a week ago, I wouldn't have said that was a yes to that question. So I'm going to try not to overly react, if that makes sense. But I'm open to that possibility.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, we'll do this again on Saturday. What do you got going on this week where people can grab your content?
Oh, we're doing the BA
odd.
Coaches Show.
That did sound
odd,
yeah.
Sorry.
Grab your what?
That's going to be coming out first thing tomorrow morning, the BA Coaches Show. We are going to have a wonderful time talking about this game. I have so many great plays to break down. Of all the great things Nebraska did, I'm obviously joking on that. So it's going to be a good time. I'll be coming out first thing tomorrow morning, and if I can figure out what to write, I'll put out a blog for nbnrpodcast.com. I don't really know what to write after that loss.
Well,
at least you're honest.
Yeah. A lot of people that feel the same way. Ben, as always, we enjoy the conversation. Look forward to that and much more this week, and we'll talk to you next Monday.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.